Economic empowerment, particularly in Kenya, has been something we've been talking about. We have the Women's Fund, we have the Uwezo Fund, which, women get, and also the 30% of government contracts and tenders that have been set aside for youth and young women. The uptake of that is not as high. Gina, why? Is it just about making funds available and saying, women, here you go, there's 6 billion shillings here for you to use, go ahead and use it?
Well, I think a lot of awareness and training of women is important, because don't forget we're quite far behind, and the fact that there's a quota out there for women is probably not, and the uptake's not there, is because women just probably aren't aware of what they require, because these tenders require certain things that the women require to have. So until they're trained to have them, the chances are that their tenders will always be turned away because they don't have the training. So I think training women in financial management is really important.
Yeah.
But when you look at it, how many women actually own land? Yet how many women actually work on land? And when you look at those statistics, clearly there's something wrong just in laws, in legislation. But I think we need to look at it in terms of women in Parliament who are making the laws. We go back to representation.
Right.
But training women financially is really critical. There's no point having a quota without having the training in place to make them.
Yes, and even without the training though, Gina, women have, a lot of information and understanding about money. They do manage the household finances, even in the rural areas. The woman who has, the money and decides where it's going to go to. And we've seen women in the rural areas practicing table banking. So it clearly shows that, the potential is there.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, without a doubt, the potential is there. And I think in any situation where a woman is given the opportunity to manage and to run, you will see that they're quite a way ahead of men. It's just giving them their seat at the table, or getting the women to just go and take a seat anyway, whether they're given it or not.
Indeed. Dina?
I think for me, on the ground, women feel disconnected from some of these government funds. They feel sometimes overwhelmed by the kind of paperwork that is required, and sometimes they don't have the most basic of requirements. For example, an ID.
Right.
So and the information sometimes is so overwhelming that they'd rather not involve themselves. So I believe that with awareness and a lot of education in terms of those government funds, we are going to see more women get into these kinds of issues. But again, there's also the fear of getting the monies and not being able to pay, and fearing that probably they are going to come and get my cow. They are going to come and uproot the roof.
Yeah, I think even what Gina is talking about, land in terms of offering collateral. So most of the formal institutions will, shy away from women.
Yvonne, I think I need to correct that.
Okay.
With the current monies available, the Women Enterprise Fund, the Uwezo Fund, you do not need collateral.
That collateral, yes.
You need yourself and to believe in yourself that you are able to trade and give the money. But if you read the history of women, there's a tendency of women holding back.
Yeah, they're risk averse.
I was going to say
and the holding back is what is going to get the women. For example, if you look at the consumption on the 30% procurement, do you know women have only been able to access 10%? Of the resources that are available. So Kenyan women, really, the money is available, you can't go for it. But I want to begin to agree with what Dina is saying and what my sister here said. The education, the information that goes out with it. 2 weeks ago, we had a visitor who came in from the director from the UN Women based in New York.
Yes.
And we had a moment where now she was reflecting, because she had been taken to the public procurement oversight body just to see what the resources available are able to do into the lives of women. And she was quite excited, amazed by a woman who borrowed 2,000 shillings to buy the forms and get into the business. But you know how much now she's worth? 10 million.
Wow.
10 million. And I mean, she needs to come out and tell these stories. We need to have the media playing these stories of real women who have grown.
Right.
And all you need is that information,
Yeah.
believing in yourself,
Yeah.
and going for it.
But I think also women are quite afraid of failure.
Yeah,
I think we
exactly.
hold ourselves to a
Yeah.
very high standard, and I think
Right.
failure is something that we all really worry about. And I think in any business, whether it's men or women, success and failure go
But
hand
you've
in
taken
hand.
some
in
big
hand.
risks, Gina, haven't
Definitely,
you?
and I've had lots of failure, and
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of it.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing, is that when we're not afraid, what's the worst thing that can happen? I think that's the thing. Women, we tend to be very hard on ourselves.
Yeah, that's
But
true.
it boils down to empowerment.
Yes.
Yes.
Finally, when a girl is allowed to achieve her full human potential, when she's empowered, when her sexual and reproductive health and rights are
Go to
protected and
school.
inviolable,
Yes.
she's able to complete her education, she's able to get the skills that a secondary and a tertiary education provides her with. Not only will she excel, she will we've seen it across the world where
Yes.
women are examples where they've actually outshined men.
Yeah.
And I think that is the opportunity Kenyan women need. It's there. The potential is there. But if 1 in 5 women are going to be cut and have to drop out of primary school, FGM continues to be rampant, though,
Yeah.
despite the fact that Kenya has made gains. Child marriage continues to be there. Adolescent HIV AIDS is spiking, particularly around adolescent girls. So
right.
these are the things that need to change, and this is where the dramatic transformation will happen. Keep in mind, I talked about the demographic dividend of Kenya.
Yeah.
It's not lifelong. It's just another 30 years. By
That's right.
2050, the picture changes dramatically. By 2050, Kenya's population is going to be 85 million. 3,000 Kenyans are born a day, 1 million a year. 1 million are joining the workforce.
Yeah. Interesting. I want
I
us
just
to...
wanted to add that self-confidence is very important. Having self-confidence, believing in yourself, and being a go-getter. But in most cases, especially Kenyan women, in the grassroots, that is something that is almost non-existent.
Don't outshine him, just,
Yeah.
sort of stay
Be
above
a
the
good
waters,
girl.
be a good
Exactly,
girl,
yeah.
don't ruffle the
Quiet, yeah.
feathers. Okay,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. I'd like
But
us
would it
Yeah.
surprise Yvonne
Yeah.
that in this era and time, we have free primary education,
Yeah.
free secondary education, as it were, even if you then parents have to
Chip in, yeah.
chip in.
Right.
That we have parents who sit every day and don't take their children to school, both boys and girls. We currently are just concluding a study on the child pregnancies and the rate of children below 18 who are getting pregnant. And the responsible people, fathers, are making
Teachers.
their own children
yes.
pregnant. The teachers,
Teachers as well,
we
yeah.
trust so much in the borders, and you just allow them to go with your children. So clearly we are impacting on the lives of these children negatively. And that is why the Sustainable Development Goals still did find that there is no country in the world that has achieved gender equality.
Right.
And when you look at the targets being set, they're the same similar targets we set in
Yeah,
Beijing.
that's right.
Do away with harmful cultural practices, child marriages. We went to one of the communities in Samburu and got surprised that a girl gets circumcised at 8, 10, 12
Married,
years,
yeah.
and you are ready to go and be somebody's wife.
Yes,
So you are a
their
child
children.
yourself. So even at the level of getting babies, carrying yourself becomes an issue.
Yeah.
So the issue of empowerment, and I liked, maybe let me just mention this as a way forward. Wangare Maathai.
Yeah.
Many years ago, when I grew and was still a young person growing, she kept talking about planting trees.
Yeah.
And when we were in primary school, it was like a hobby,
Yes.
planting trees. But now, as I sit here and I go to the international forums, and I'm hearing discussions like from the Paris negotiations on the climate change agreement.
Yes.
And what Maathai told us a few years ago
Is
is real.
Very
And
visionary.
even as we are negotiating on the table, have we thought that women have something to add in adaptation and mitigation? Are we thinking about our mothers, our grandmothers, who wake up every day and they're looking for firewood, putting it to burn to make food, the dangers they're exposing themselves to?
Okay.
So you talk about clean energy.
Yeah.
Where are the women? I'm just telling you, Yvonne, it is so important that women sit at these decision-making tables.
Absolutely. Let's wind up our conversation with your final thoughts. I'd like to start with you, Sid, because you talk about, listen, this is, it's beyond education. You take girls to school, but then they go back home and it is their fathers and their mothers and their religious leaders. If you can just do this in less than a minute, because I want us to do something a little special.
A critical mass is change that needs to come at 3 levels. One is the level of the shock and awe of justice.
Yeah.
There should be a red light, be it at the community level, be it at the national level, be it at an individual level. That when it comes to violating a girl, when it comes to sexual and gender-based violence, that's a red light,
Yeah.
and that will see the full force of justice. The second is empowering the judiciary, the police systems, etc., with knowledge. Knowledge is very empowering. They need to understand that when a young boy sees, you know, his mother being beaten up and the mother tells him, no, it's okay because your father loves me, he's beaten me.
That's right.
So when he grows up, he assumes that's the
And the
truth.
cycle
So that
continues.
needs to change. And the third and the most important level is what can be done at the home, at the community level. How do we sensitize the elders and the religious leaders to make that message home? I think that is where the change is going to happen, and it's already beginning to happen in Kenya.
Okay.
It's just a matter of giving it momentum.
All right, Gina?
For me, I think, you know, I'll follow on what Sid said. I think the religious organizations really have a huge role to play
Yeah.
here. Unfortunately, most of them are run by men. But I think, you know, if women could get into sort of more of the leadership position in religious organizations,
Yeah.
then I think a fundamental shift would happen, because we're a religious country. So,
Absolutely,
you know.
yeah. Winnie, just in less than a minute if you can.
The women we're talking about, Yvonne, let me bring it back home,
Yeah.
is none other than your daughter, your mother,
Yeah.
your auntie. I know sometimes men do not want to admit about wives, so sometimes when you talk about wives, they become jittery. But let's talk about daughters and
Right,
mothers. And
yeah.
everybody says, my mother is my role
Yeah.
model. These are the women we are saying. Do you want them to be in the decision-making space? And for me, I think for Kenya, we have the constitution. We now are asking our members of parliament, do you want your daughter to be the next MP? Do you want your daughter to come and sit in the county assembly?
Yeah.
Do you want your daughter to be that executive cabinet secretary? Then let's say yes to
Okay.
the affirmative action.
All right, Dina, quickly.
I'd say there is a famous Hollywood star, Sharon Stone, who said that the battle of the sexes was won in a draw. We have to support women for us to move forward fast. And when we help women, we are smiling back at the universe. And so it is absolutely important that the government, the system, the administration has to see to it that women are at the forefront.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Gentleman and lady, it's very good to sometimes say that. Winnie Lichuma would like to congratulate you here. If you don't know, she was appointed member of the Independent Accountability Panel for the Every Woman, Every Child Health Initiative globally. Thank you. Also, would like to recognize Daisy Amdani, who I understand is going to be addressing the House of Commons.
Wow.
Isn't she? Yes? Okay, some great
Fantastic.
stuff. So there's lots of women. Gina, for all your work. Sid, for being such a fighter for women's rights. But then there's also somebody else that we'd like to, you know, congratulate very quickly. And I don't know if one of my cameramen can just help me bring this cake here, because, you know, a woman hosts this show. But then there's also another woman who's the brains behind this show. So occasionally a lot of what you see on this show has been done and produced by a woman.